Well, good evening again, and here we are with a new topic, and that is if you want to speak in English, then what are the methods which we can apply so that we can become fluent, and at the same time we can speak effective English, right? And because it's been a burning question, people try a lot, and they find that they've been trying a lot, but they are not making progress in their learning process. So, what can be the best way for them to converse and to face any situation in which they are able to find themselves comfortable while they're having this conversation, right? So without any delay, let's dive straight into the topic. And now we are going to discuss that what are the best ways to learn to speak in English, right? So Robin, I want you to start sharing your experience. What kind of things you did to be able to learn spoken English, and what kind of kinds of challenges you had to go through, and how you overcome those challenges, and the best thing you think was motivating factor for you to help you learn the spoken English. Over to
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And good evening, first of all. See, before I start and to respond to all of your questions, and these are not questions, these are general discussions that we are going to have.
Yes.
And this particular video is only for the purpose how we can develop interest, first of all, in English language and for English language. Secondly, who have developed their interest in English language, but for some of the reasons, they are not able to sustain that particular interest. As we have seen more often, students often not having anything, and they are just like giving up in their initiation or in their beginning phases of learning, and they often end up quitting up this called learning process. So we are going to cover all these things in this video. So let's start this discussion with a few of your general question that you threw at me first, that how I developed this language and what are those obstructions and hindrances I faced throughout my learning. I mean, if someone asked me these questions or certain questions as to how I developed this language and what was that factor which actually kept me motivated, because it's something which we need to have for 24 hours. It's not just with English; it is with everything. Whatever you want to learn, whatever you want to achieve in your life, there has to be with you as force, as impetus force within you. And in the absence of it, I don't think you can sustain your journey, and there should be an inbuilt or innate passion for that. I mean, there should not be an artificial fervor. That's what I say in my term. There should not be any artificial fervor. It should be a natural ardent, like a desire, burning desire. So if someone wants to be an actor, someone wants to be doing something in the sports field, someone wants to be good communicator, someone wants to address large mass, so these are all the fields and the departments which requires an utmost passion first, and second, determination. So these are the two important things. Even people who have just started, you know or have just like started thinking whether should get enrolled with this English learning process, they should be coming up with these two important, you know uh, you can say, uh, cardinals, because this is something very important. Now, how I developed my communication skills, as I told you, there are number of phases, plenty of phases which I underwent, and I'm really happy for that reason, because I at least knew that for all those phases, for all those reasons, for all those steps that I took for the purpose of improving my communications, they didn't work at large. So I'm not going to use them all. Okay. Second important thing about communication skill is that whenever we communicate more with the people, see, we all know that we are non-native speakers, and we don't have that surroundings. Even when we have some English speaking schools and there is an environment there, but really don't find, I mean, except few schools, but there is not that much a very intense culture of English speaking. You
Yes.
go to any school, but there should be at least a kind of urgent need, which I don't find you can have in your around or in your surroundings, right? In your milieu, this is not possible. So the first urgent need for everyone who really wants to communicate well confidently is that they need to arrange a kind of environment. They have to create it for themselves. Now, that's I told you initially that unless you are being passionate, unless you are very much fervor for doing something, you cannot do it on your own. So what I'm saying is this: all these things must be right from within you. So if something is not there, something that you really want to create, you have to create that. So first thing that you can create in that is that the environment. Now many people come out with this excuse, sir, how we can do that? And there is no such possibility. Most of them are not even interested in communicating, especially in English languages, because they don't find good, they don't find that they are actually doing something, because it doesn't give them that feeling, right? This is usually the case with all Indians. So in that conditions, you have to sustain that fire in you. It's okay that if someone is not able, or for any of the reasons they are not, I mean, feeling good, or maybe feeling comfortable in communicating, or in doing this communication with English language, let them do whatever they want. Since it's your need, so you have to stick to that. You have to be first determined. That's what I told right in the beginning of this video, that one has to be determined. It should not be based and reliant upon something, some other person, that what they want, and according to them we will decide our journey. It's not going to happen. And if you go with this, I think there is nothing much you can produce after it. So the determination and resoluteness, there must be within you for communication. Now, you may find some halts as it happens. This is just a life, and this is just a language, and language and learning language is an art. Don't ever go, don't try to go into that level of your utopian world, where you have your already created world, where you think that you are speaking like flawlessly, impeccably. It's not going to be possible, because it is impossible for everyone. If you ask even a good communicator right now, he also must not be very much happy with his communication skills. He might be okay with this, but just because of he has something more to achieve. So this journey, this hunger for achieving, for getting more, is always there with you. And in fact, this is the only positive thing which keeps us ignited from within, right? So this ignition must be there, ablazing in you, in your heart, and you go with this. You will find that you will be able to talk on all possible circumstances, in all possible circumstances, and on all possible topics. And that's what is requirement. It is the only requirement for us. So two things: be determined, resolute, and whatever may happen, don't compromise with your particular desire, with your particular goal that you have set up. If you want to be a good communicator, then don't let it go. And you should not be making excuse just because of someone has failed to create some circumstances, some environment for you. It is you who has to do anything or everything for yourself, right? So apply all these formulas in the beginning and go ahead. Over to you.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, right? So, as you know, I've been very much into sports, to be very honest. And you already know about me. I've been a Hindi medium student throughout my life. I did my post graduation in English. That was the only thing I did, with English. But I've been a Hindi medium student. So, what I just wanted in my life is that whenever I would see the players, having this presentation, ceremony, they would always talk to each other in English. And I was so much, big on sports. And I made a promise to myself that one day I would be speaking like these people. And that was the fuel, I would say, that worked as a fuel, and that kept me motivated throughout my journey. And it's still, I'm hungry. Even today, I'm hungry to learn more and more. I've never ever been satisfied with myself. No matter, whatever I miss, whatever I have been able to do so far, I don't know what I've done, but I'm never ever satisfied with my English communication skills and anything, whatever, I've done so far in my life. So that was the fuel. So first of all, we have to have a very clear cut goal in our life. If that goal is somewhere missing, then we don't feel, motivated to
Right.
achieve that. Right. So whenever somebody wants to do anything in their lives, whether, it's all about, having, reaching a certain level, or having a particular, I would learning a particular skills, or having good command over English language, or having good command over public speaking, whatever it is in their lives. I always tell them that if you have any dream in your life, see what are you going to rewarded with. If you do something today, if you can see that that those rewards when you do something today, then I think that will be the that will work as a magnet, that will have that pulling attraction towards towards itself. So that's very much important. If you don't have you don't if you don't see the things from that perspective, from that point of view, I think you can never ever have those goals in a life. So first of all, what you have to do is to have a clear cut goal, and then you have to decide the steps which you are to take to reach that particular goal. We all know that every dream has its own cost, own price, I
Right.
would say. And if you don't pay the price, forget that you would ever have that goal, right? So whenever I was learning, I would always talk to myself in English. And even I mean, this this particular kind of practice in my life today. Whenever somebody, I mean, my students, whenever they talk to me in Hindi, I always tell them, either talk to me in English or don't talk to me at all, right?
Right.
Or a fine of certain bucks is going to be imposed on
Uh,
you. It's a simple method, right? Because we know that if we don't force ourselves to do something, then we can never ever rise above those challenges, right? So that's important. So you have to have clear cut goal, then you have to force yourself towards doing those things which
yeah.
you
Right.
are supposed to do, because that's the only way that can take you there, right? So that is very much important. Third thing is that you have to develop, you have to have that curiosity, right?
Right.
As you told, when you were explaining, you were sharing your experience with with me and with the audience, that you have to have that particular curiosity and interest. Until or unless you kindle that interest in yourself, I think you can never find yourself to be comfortable and to be very much into that
Right.
particular thing. So you have to have that kind of interest in that particular thing. And the next comes that you cannot avoid this persistency, right? So sorry, persistence, that's the slip of my tongue. So you cannot avoid this thing. This is highly important. Once you thought of doing something, then you have to stick to it. You have to be
Right.
persistent and persistent in your efforts. And if you lack persistence in your efforts, I think you will be giving up half the way, right?
Right.
That is very much important. And same happened when I was on my journey to learn this this particular language, that is English language, because I realized the importance of this language when I was a kid. And you wouldn't believe that my brother, who used to read those English magazines. So he had, loads of magazines, and I never knew what's written in those magazines, because I have never been, means I'd never been taught by anybody. So I would just read those magazines, and I would just find the words which I could see there, and without giving it a second thought, I started writing those words in my, in my diary, and started, learning the definitions, right? So, because if you want to learn any language, you should have some good amount of words, right? Because language is made of words. If you don't know the
Right.
words, then you can not actually speak. Even though I learn all the rules and all the grammar, that is not gonna work out for me if I don't have good command over vocabulary. So that is
Right.
important for you. So these are the factors which really kept me motivated, and I could learn whatever I mean, whatever you can hear. So this is what I could learn, because I devoted myself to the craft, this craft, that is called speaking.
Right.
And that's what helped me a lot to get where I am today. Although I'm never ever satisfied, right?
Ah, that's good.
So when you become satisfied, it's my personal philosophy. When you, no matter what the
Ah,
the field, what the area of life you are in, if you become satisfied, then
we
you
stop learning.
are kind of putting a lid on your potential. I mean, you are stopping yourself from going beyond your
Yeah.
your imagination.
Right.
When we think that we are able to do this, it means we have limited ourselves.
Right.
Because somewhere I read in that book, it's been written by Robin Sharma. I mean, in one of the videos we were doing, I shared that particular particular thought. I think it's been written in that Discover Your Destiny, I think. So in which he writes that whenever you do some, do some push-ups, suppose you're able to do 20, and if you force yourself, if you push your limits, I think you will end up doing 25.
Right, right.
So when we think that we are able to do this much, we are actually putting that, that limit on ourselves. And if we try to force ourselves or push our limits, we can do more than whatever we can dream of.
Right.
So this, these are the things which we have to apply, and we don't have to think too much about people, right?
Correct.
Because if you, whenever somebody says that, why do you talk in English? So I simply say, because, first, this is my profession. Second thing, this is, how I practice. If I don't speak to anybody, when would I practice and how would I practice? And practice is more important. And that is the most important thing I would say. Because without practice, no much whatever you've gained in your life, if you don't put that into practice, one day you'll forget that. The skill become rusty, right? So these are the things, which I applied in my life, and which kept me motivated. Now what are we gonna discuss is the methods which can help a person develop, good English, and means they can speak in a way that they can talk to anybody, whether they're talking people from, America, England. So what are the methods and best methods, I would say, that can help a person develop good English language?
Okay.
To you.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to be very specific on this very part, but what I have learned and over my experiences, all those techniques which I applied, and I found it to be really productive, as it gave me some satisfactory results. I always believe in having and perceiving results, then following all those tricks and tips and all these techniques. Before we discuss about all these techniques, I really want people to know about that, and this is something really a fact of everything. It's not just about learning English, it involves almost all possible things which you are planning to learn. It may be dance, it may be, you know, uh, communication, it may be anything.
Any skill, right?
Yes, it may be any skills. So, what is that? That not all techniques are suitable to you, especially the one which has been suited by someone else or which has been suited to someone else, right? So it's not like a scene for everyone or with everyone, because we are with a different mindsets, we are with a different environment, right? And our requirements are absolutely different from the requirements of other person.
Yes.
Maybe the person is in the same course of learning, but just because of these are the discrepancies which we need to understand and analyze as quickly as possible, so that you could you know stop wasting time in the same process and could choose something else to get instant results. I think there is nothing like an instant result, especially in the learning department and especially in learning communication skill. Everything comes step by step, and there is a specific procedure. And in fact, what you learn, especially on a gradual path or very gradually, it is for sure that you are going to learn it permanently, right? So we need to first of all be very aware of our own personal need and requirement as to what really we want. Okay. For example, I have seen many students who really want to learn communication. But if you ask them why do they want to communicate and what is the purpose for their communication, for the learning of this kinds of language, learning, even if it is French, Spanish, German, whatever language it is, many of them somewhere struggle in responding these questions because they don't have a clear cut, a destinations which they really want themselves to be reaching to, right? So whatever you learn, even if it is learning English, you have to be very specific on all those basic points as to what is the need and what exactly the kind of transaction you want to make with English language in your future time period as it comes ahead. Because until you are able to connect your journey with a bigger objective, you are not going to be productive at all. This is my personal experience. So you have to have something bigger. So, for example, if you ask me why I'm into this communication, what is my need? So I have a very bigger objective, and that keeps me binding to this for 24 hours. And that is that I have to make an argument before the judge. I have a number of my lawyers and advocates, friends, and we have to communicate on thoroughly on different topics. There are several things which we have to discuss, as the day passes, everything we have to do. So this is my utmost need. How much I could be clear, how much I could be more, laconic in my way of communication is my particular requirement. I don't want to communicate more like someone who is verbose, someone who is just like panicking you with his prolixity for no reasons, where you can complete your sentence in 2 minutes. You are taking more than 30 minutes for the same thing. So people are there for the different needs. I am one of those who really want to get more, you know, clarity and more, you can say, something like which is very much crispy, right? Which is uh, very much clear in a very lesser words. This is what is my overall practice, and I keep doing this. Okay, this is what is my requirement, and this is the requirement of my profession. It means you have to be comprehensive, you have to be very articulative. At the same time, you have to be with less words. So first, you understand this, that yes, this is my need, and then you go ahead and set up everything as a course of learning. Then there is a fair possibility that you are going to learn things very quickly, grasp and have a strong clench over things very quickly. This is for sure. And these are the rudimentary things that one should know. However, many people really don't know about it because they jump something to the later stages of learning, which is completely injustice to their own learning styles. Even teachers don't teach them. This is just like a new trend where a teacher comes out with his extravagancy of fluency or something like this, with hyperbolic words in a florid style, and just giving them an enthralling feeling to all the students, even when the students are unable to understand anything. This is not going to be at all as which you can say a functionality or functioning, because I really don't believe in this. You might get impressed, but that impression is very transient and very fleeting. We need to know what exactly we want. So the first technique, which according to me was suitable to me, as I told you, because I believe something which suits me. Now, this technique may be suitable to you or maybe not that much. Completely depends upon your overall understanding and overall environment that is in your surrounding, right? So, what actually really helped me a lot. See, I have tried a lot of things, to be very honest. I have undergone a number of programs in a sense, self-made programs, and this has been with me since since almost a decade. That I haven't gone into any specificity of learning English languages. We have number of channels today, and even we go to read some books and try to find out all those procedures, a set of course which gives us instant results. I have never gone into that process. What I did rather, I actually did a self planning, a self made thing. Self made things means I was randomly jumping onto something and trying to understand as to how it works. So I have started my journey from reading newspaper, as I was very novice to that even a newspaper could really be working out for someone who doesn't even know to write properly, to speak properly, and you are directly giving them a newspaper such as the Hindu and the Indian Expresses.
That's what,
Even I
that's what I think. Whenever people suggest that they should be going for newspaper, they are using very heavy and advanced words. How can a beginner, learn, understand that
it's
particular
not, it's
thing?
not at all.
It's
See,
injustice.
there are two forms. Yeah, you want to say something? I come after you. You want to say
Please,
something else?
that's what I'm saying. As you just mentioned that, people say just read newspaper, read your novels, and just listen to some podcast and at all. Just tell me one thing, if a beginner, right, he doesn't even know the common words, how can that beginner go for
Absolutely.
newspapers like the Hindu, Times of
Right.
India? They use very advanced words, very heavy words, and the person will start scratching their heads, and right, as a result the person will then give up because it's not going to be possible, because
Right.
from the very beginning they're being given something which is far beyond their capacity,
Right.
right? Yes.
So obviously, see, these are the things. These are the very established lies which we need to burst down in our videos in the days to come. Because even mentality exists today. You go to some coachings where teachers are imposing these high loaded vocabularies, newspapers, especially on
Web series, English
now,
movies. How can
now
they see English movies, know how heavy words they use, very slangy
it
words they use,
it
right?
is not at all. It is not going to be giving them even an ounce of result.
Yes,
This is the fact. This is not something which could be experienced individually. No, this is experienced for same experience for also general experience and standard experience. So if you are initiating your process of learning any language, make sure that you should be on the very first pedestal of first step. And the first step is that first try to create environment before you rather than accumulating books, because even you have a good capacity of reading, you may read thousands of books. I come from a law background and I have read a number of books in last 5 or 6 years, number of books. If I can show you my room, you will be surprised that in last 5 years I have gathered almost 2 to 300 books already. 100 books only, belonging to the law field and other departments too. What I feel is that whatever you read is for your writing purpose, for only specific things. For example, participation in discussions, participation in GD, or let's say you have some profession where it requires a little intelligence so that you could give them certain kind of suggestions. So these books, these learnings are for that purposes, and this comes at a later stage. This is not even coming in the initial phase of learning, at the inception, right? So what I say is that begin your communication or this particular set of course of learning on the very right first step, and that is to communicate, to find some partner and start communicating with whatever you have, and make sure that you are not going to be much into vocab. I mean, many people say do this and do that for learning communication. I focus on, please don't do that. It is something like an omission that one must follow. So one omission from my side could be as a technique accepted by the learners whosoever watching this video, is that don't ever, don't ever try to imitate the things that you read in the books, in the sense that you want to create the same kind of structure, and you are heavily involved in that. This is going to consume your hell time and you are going to be bothered at the end of the day. There are two forms of language. One is for specific for writing purposes, and the second is for speaking. Whatever we read is that writing. So you can write well whatever you want. That is your personal choice, and you have a time to write. But when it comes to read speaking, that is something different. You have a full, space for communication. You have full all your kind of tools in the sense that your verbal communicating tools, your non-verbal communicating tools, you are full of expressions, your gestures, postures, so all are there helping you to communicate with the people. Focus more on delivering and imparting the very point for which you have established that particular communication for a while, and never try to trade off that particular objective. If you practice this as a method, I really believe that in a shorter span of time, you are going to achieve a satisfactory level of communication where you would be able to communicate on all possible topics. Moreover, people will understand you and you are not going to give them any hard time, because make sure that whenever we hold communication with people, the other person is your responsibility and you want they to listen to you. It's your choice what kind of pattern you adopt for communication and for communicating purpose. Whatever you choose, it's your choice at the end of the day. But make sure whatever you are speaking, it should not be that much complex, intricate, that should be giving a very hard time to understand them, because if they don't understand things, they are not going to give you any rebuttal, and at the end of the day there is a complete failure of the discussion. So avoid this failure of discussion, because this is something wastage of time and everything. So these are the two techniques which I have discussed. First, that not try to imitate everything what you read from the books, rather than go with the phrases, which will be very important. Second important thing, omit something which you think is not important, and don't delve much with grammar. That's what is very important. I'll show you one grammar book I purchased 7 years back, and for the purpose of getting more, you know, deeply understanding in the grammar. I realized what is the need of this. When I have read a number of books, literature, I found some silly mistakes are everywhere, everywhere. In fact, language is all about doing experiment with. This is what most of the writers do. It is it is up to you how you're going to be much playful with vocabs, how you're going to be much expressionable with everything that is around surround that is with you as a tool, right? So all these things combinedly can give you a very remarkable result in the short span of time. Over to you.
Yes, if you ask me, so I would suggest, the methods, based on my experience, because everybody's ability is different. I always consider myself to be a slow coach. I never think, that I know I can do the things very faster. It's impossible, right? So I just do the things at my own pace, and I just enjoy, doing those things. So what I did
Right.
in my life is, to be honest, whenever I was in a school, whatever I was taught, especially in English, I could understand nothing. The reason behind this was that, whatever I was being taught was, very, very, I was in bookish, right? There was no practical, kind of thing. And whenever we develop any particular, language skill, we have to have a very practical approach towards learning, right? Because if you learn the language in a very bookish fashion, right, it's going to give you a lot of, I would say, it puts a lot of burden on you, right?
Yeah.
You find it difficult to
Right.
understand that, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
whenever to be honest, when I was in class 10th, my principal ma'am would come and she would teach me subject and predicate, right? Which I could never, which I could really not make out of, means make out. I couldn't understand what she was teaching. And when today I just look back and find that it was too easy, right? Subject, I mean, the one is the subject and other thing is just predicate. How
Right.
simple, that was. But I'm talking about the kind of, methodology is being used in our schools, right? So we don't have to learn it as a subject. We have to learn it as a language. And language is spoken, language is learned as a language, right?
Right.
For example, what I started doing, and means everybody's taught tenses, right? But I find that students are not able to use them, even though they are being taught the same thing over and over. Every year they're taught the same thing, but they are not able to utilize that. So why? Because they have got the same kind of practice, like they're learning language as a subject, whereas it is a language, and it's a
Right.
skill, right? Which has to be means which has to be learned as an art. It's an art, right? So I started having that very practical approach. As to be honest, I've never ever been to any institution where I could, learn this, grammar kind of thing. I've never learned grammar, even though,
Me too.
I'm teaching, grammar. I'm teaching grammar and I'm enjoying it. Really, I really don't find that grammar can be that boring, because it is not actually boring, because it is taught to us in a boring way, right? And
Right.
that's why we find it so dull, right? So I developed that approach, that you have to have that practical approach. And then what I did was, whatever I could learn on my own, I started putting everything into practice. I did have means I did not have anybody to talk to in English. So what I would do, just I would just wrap my face whenever I would just go and just I would travel, and I would just drive, means I would ride my bike and all. I would always wrap my face, right? And I would talk to myself. I don't know what I was talking to myself. I could have made, many mistakes, while I was talking, but I would always try to speak something. And this is how I trained my tongue and my jaws and my ears and everything. Because your speech organs are needed to be trained, right?
Moduled. Yes. Yeah.
Because we learn lots of words, but we find it difficult to bring them on a tongue. They don't
Absolutely.
surface on our, tongue. Just the reason is
It
we have never
requires just
tried.
it requires just one touch of your tongue and be bit
Yes,
little familiar, and then you are very comfortable with that. So make
yes.
every word that you find is advanced to you to be little bit, using of that particular word, and then it gets familiarized easily.
Yes, and whatever the word I learned in my life, I always learned with an example, because you must know the context in which the
Absolutely.
word can be used. Simple definition is not going to help you, right?
Absolutely.
You must know the situations where the word can be used, and then you should also always try to speak with that particular word which you've just picked up. What we do, we are just going to means we keep learning the words, but we never ever use
Ah, this is
them.
absolutely.
And this makes the hash of the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
So as you know that we've been playing with the language for quite a long time, and I generally whenever I talk to my students, especially this actually I don't apply this to a kind of a technique when I talk to people who are not my students, because I don't really want to confuse anybody. But yes, we can have some we can do some some experimentation with the our students, because we are teaching them, right? We are training them. So I pick up new words, and then I start using with my students, right? And then they ask what can it mean, then I tell them. Why do I use those new words? Because I know the older ones already. How would I practice the one which I've just picked up? So I started using those particular words which I've just picked up. And then one more thing, I really work on is I work a lot on structures. Means you have to understand the situations. How can you speak in a particular situation, right? If you don't know that situation, then nothing will work for you. Neither the words will work for you, right? So situations, knowing the situation is important. For example, I'm talking about past, but I'm using sentences which can express present,
yeah,
right? And generally, what happens when people speak in unreal situations, about unreal situations, like if something had happened
yeah,
and
yeah.
I would have done something, so they don't actually know those situations, and this is
Yeah,
what hinders them, hinders the progress. So
yeah,
you
right,
must know the situations. You must you keep learning the things with the examples. And one more thing, that you should be open to new challenges, I would say, because language learning is lifelong. You cannot master it in a matter of months, in a matter of days, because people make tall claims like learn English in 5 months, in 10, 90 days and something like that. This is bullshit, I would say. Because how can a person, if your level is already very good, you have reached a very good level, I mean you are already speaking like a pro, so you can polish up your speaking style. But if you're starting from the very beginning, from scratch, you're starting from scratch, how can you expect yourself to be speaking like a pro in a few days? It's impossible, right? So never ever think that you can learn a particular skill in 90 days. You can reach a certain level, but you cannot become a pro, right?
right,
So you don't have to have so many expectations with yourself. You have to
right,
keep learning, you have to keep doing some experiments, and you have to keep playing with the language. That's the only thing. And one more thing, even a person can have good, I would say, conversation if he or she knows only tenses, if they know how to put them into practice, right?
right,
So simple, if you know models, the surface, if you have this the surface knowledge, of models and tenses, you can become a good communicator. And then once you achieve a certain level, you can go deeper into it, right?
right,
But don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. It will always hinder your progress, right?
right.
When what happens, this happens to us as well. Whenever we have some conversation, we can make some silly mistakes, right? We can means
That, yes,
we can make
this
some
is a part of the learning.
this is how we learn and how we evolve, right?
Yeah,
If a person who claims to have never made any mistake is fooling himself or herself,
oh,
right? Because
absolutely.
it's impossible. When you are trying to innovate something, you will certainly make mistakes, because then you'll get to know that this is something which I should not do while I'm doing something, because this won't lead me to that
Right,
particular conclusion, right? Or that particular result. So innovation always entails a person to make mistake. Now this is how people
absolutely.
learn, right? So what I believe is you have to go for this as I do, that I would wrap my face and I would talk to myself. It's a kind of shadow technique. You have to repeat the things, whatever
Right,
you learned, you're repeating that. One more thing, you have to immerse yourself in that particular environment, as you rightly told, right? Because if you don't create that environment, you won't actually, for example, if we want a certain plant, if we want to grow a certain plant, how can we see its growth if we are providing
right,
it with the environment it needs, right? If you are growing a tree, you can say growing a plant or a tree under the roof, it won't grow that much, because
right,
what it requires, it requires the sunlight. It requires all those things which are only possible when it is outside. your
Right.
house, right? So if you don't provide yourself the kind of environment which you really need, then you cannot expect, you cannot see many results, right? And one more thing, we are living in India, right? We are living in India. You cannot expect everybody to talk to you in English. Even,
Right.
nobody speaks in English in our families, right? Yeah, I don't really use a single word of English when I talk to my mother, because she doesn't know, and why would I use,
Yeah.
English words with her?
Absolutely.
She'll get angry and start, she will start, beating me, right? So I don't really use, because I know. So how can we then, persist? Simple. You have to speak to yourself, and you have to seek some, some company where you can talk to in English, and you should have a person, particular person who can guide you through the whole process. It can be your teacher, right? It can be a mentor. It can be, your friend. It can be a relative. Whoever the person is, but you have to have somebody who can point out the mistakes which you are making, and at the same time the person is correcting you, not laughing at you,
Right.
right? So you have to have such a person, with you. And other things you already know, there are means we can use technology to our advantage as well, right? Because, right now the technology is available. When we were learning, nothing was available actually. If the things were available, we didn't have the access to those things, right? Because I got my first phone, the first keypad phone, in the year 2014, right? I didn't have, all those
It
opportunities
was
which
not
people have
possible
right
then.
now. So it's not going to be that particular difficult. We had some difficulties in our time, because, we didn't have those opportunities. We didn't have the access to the internet. But one more thing I would say, having access doesn't mean that you can utilize that. You can put and you can, turn that to your account, because you
Yeah.
must know how to filter the things, how to filter, this particular, inflow of information, right? Because you can see whenever you just type this on Google, just suggest the ways in which a person can develop their English language. I think you'll see a number of
That
suggestions.
is that is sometimes very complex
Yes.
for a
So,
beginner to get for a beginner to get start with, right? So
yes.
sometimes it causes problem.
Yes, because, you won't you see the right suggestion, because they have just, if I tell you that, it's so easy to learn to speak in English, ask the person who's trying to learn, ask the person who's still struggling, right? We know how difficult it was
Yeah.
for us, how many efforts we have put in to learn this particular language. So telling somebody or suggesting somebody from your experience, uh, maybe, somewhere, misleading, because you don't know the
Yeah.
other person's level. You don't know the other person's challenges, right? So a person has to develop his her or her own, I would say, techniques to be able to learn anything, because, they know themselves better, nobody else knows them, right?
Right.
So we did, whatever suited us,
Right.
right? Because as you know that, I think you are also from MP board,
Yeah.
right? I'm also from MP board, right? So, and we see, I've never ever studied in my life these, CBSE board, books, but I'm teaching them, right? When I saw them for the first time, it was something, I would say it was so difficult for me to grasp everything, written there. But as I told you, as you developed, your own way of, learning, I developed my own way of learning. And somehow, I kept on learning, and then I was able to grasp all those
Right.
things. Now Times of India is, I enjoy reading that, the Hindu, I enjoy reading that. But at one point of my life, it was really very difficult to understand, because
Right.
the beginning phase, right? And people should also keep it in mind that they should not be picking any such book which is written in a very florid way, right? Which is written, which contains a lot of, advanced vocabulary. They should be
Yeah.
starting small, as per the level, and then with the passage of time, when they start, picking the things up, they can upgrade the level, and then this is how they can learn. If they go for the advanced ones in the very beginning phase, I
Very
think they would give up soon.
hard not to crack for them.
Yeah, it will be very hard for them. So this is, what I used, and I keep training myself every day,
That
right? As I think you yourself, train yourself every day, because, there is no ending to learning, right?
what
So
what what I think right now, especially on that your specific point where you talked about that it's sometimes good when you don't have company around you. It's better to switch to self-talking, self-communicating. This
yes,
is one of the best technique which really doesn't require anything from us. But one thing we need to be very careful when we apply this as a process on us and try to trade upon it as a set of course which is going to give us some results, right? And the thing which we need to be careful about is that we are not going to be much into the depth of self communication. What happens mostly with the students, as I have encountered with many, and I got the same experience from most of them, is that when they communicate or when they do self communicate, they find them struggling just because of they are doing self correcting at the same time,
yes,
self communicating and simultaneously doing self correcting. This actually causes your overall set of course a bit slow for you, and thereafter you develop a mindset, because our mind is something which is always prone to develop some sort of conditioning, right? And
mm,
once this conditioning develops in us, we continue to do self correcting, and this self correcting is really I mean, you can say very dangerous, very detrimental to your overall process of learning, because it gives you, it snatches first of all those all opportunities which you could really enjoy if you haven't done that. Secondly, it also moves you away, drives you away from the very clear understanding of what English and how it actually works, right? So I always tell most of the people that don't do self correcting. This is also true that whenever we hold a communication with people, right now I am holding a communication with you, you can also tell on your experience and so far that we have had right now, it's been more than 45-50 minutes. Have we ever tried to check each other, investigate each other's communication on the ground of the grammatical mistakes that we are committing? Not at all. We really don't need to do that, since people who is there to listen to you will never be bothered about your silly and frivolous grammatical mistakes. However, if
if,
you are coming with a point
yes,
which is really important, so I
because
give
if we
them
keep focusing on that, it'll hamper the conversation.
absolutely. It hampers it actually. Obviously, it actually consumes a lot of time. You
Yes,
have a brain to function on one particular thing which you are trying to concentrate upon, and moreover, you thereafter make it make it divide, especially in its functionality. So what happens that where you could have given 100% concentration on one particular thing, now this concentration has been divided. So this is what very important to realize in the beginning. Remember, this should be realized right in the beginning phase of the learning. Once it becomes a conditioning of the mind, then it becomes really hard. It's not impossible. Again, you can just like move away and drive away and eliminate this kind of trivial, learning process, but it will take some time. So better you go and do something in the initial phase of learning with something good and something which is impeccable from your side at least. So this is I always want all people to be little careful about.
so what I was, saying was that, until or unless you get any chance or you get any, break, I would say you should be working at your own level, right? Because there is no point in wasting your time. So what you can do is to start, from whatever you have, from where you are, and then when you get some opportunities, right? You can take advantage of those opportunities, but you should always be utilizing everything that you have at your disposal, right?
Right.
Because if you're waiting for the right opportunities, I don't know that I don't really think what is right and what is wrong. You have to
Right.
turn it to be right, you have to turn it to be the right opportunity for you, because nothing is right and nothing is wrong. Somebody said, I don't really know that. I don't believe in right decision, wrong decisions. If I have means you can say derived results, if I've produced some results, people will say it's a right decision. And if I have if my decision goes wrong, no matter how hard I tried, people will say I made a mistake, right? So
Yeah.
whenever you do something, just you have to devote yourself to that particular thing, and results will really follow. Because
Right.
Results are the result of your hard work and your investment of your efforts in that particular thing, and then you'll be reaping, the results. You will be reaping, whatever your efforts have produced. So
Correct.
simply you have to start from whatever you have. You don't have to think too much about it. What will the
Yeah.
people think, if you make mistakes?
It's okay.
Nobody actually
It happens.
cares about it. And those who cared about it are not actually the good learners, because
Right.
a good learner never ever makes fun of those who are trying to learn, right?
Yeah.
So forget that people will say something about you. You have to keep moving towards achieving your goals, because that's the only thing you have to do. And never ever think of reaching the perfection, because
Absolutely.
in my view,
There is
perfect.
no face of perfection, by the way.
Yes, because if you think that I have now perfected myself, there will be somebody who's far beyond than you. Far beyond
Absolutely.
you,
You
sorry.
will stop
Who's far?
learning. It's very natural.
Yes,
It's a
because
psychology.
there are different levels of people, and you
Absolutely.
can say there is no parity in this world. If you are a good learner, somebody is better than you,
Ah,
and
that's always there.
somebody is somewhere better than you.
Something which is in your hand is your determinations to, in a more resolute manner, to continue with your own practice. That is what is in your hand. And one bugbear which I really want to share through your channel, that is a bugbear, a common bugbear, which is always in a latent form in all students' mind and all beginners' mind, that is that they always being impatient, especially when they communicate with a person, and these people who is speaking on a very gradual note or very slowly. And in this way, what happens, the counterpart, the listener, the person standing before, it starts being impatient, right? So what happens in this very situation, the person who is speaking starts fearing, and it starts losing his overall kind of opinion, the point which he wanted to share with the person, just because of he thinks that he is giving him hard time, or he is taking too much of time for speaking just a silly thing or very simple thing, right? Anyone has such experience, especially in their beginning phase of learning, or even the later or the advanced phase of learning. It is you who have to choose and fix your rate of speech. Everyone has a different rate of speech. For example, my rate of speech is faster little faster in the sense that I always try to speak a little bit slowly so that I could impart the point which I really want to convey, like a drive home lesson. So therefore, I actually try to focus. I could maintain my rate of speech. What I do according to my own choice, keeping the keeping the interest of the listeners in my mind always, because you alone cannot communicate. You have to always keep the interest of your partner in your mind throughout your communication. So this is what I'm trying to say. You have to be little bit aware and interpersonal, because your interpersonal skill little must be little, very strong in that point. Because if
Yes.
your interpersonal skill is not strong, you cannot understand the undercurrents of your partner, right? So you have to just like be very friendly. You have to speak your part. You have to just give your part. Let the person think whatever they are thinking, even when you are going slow, because you want to convey your point rather than you are there to impress them. So this very focus must be shifted from making someone impress to making their own point very clearly. So this something, the balance one has to make and communicate and continue with their learning process. Over to you.
Yes, last and not the least, one more thing I would like to share with our audience is that there are damn good speakers on YouTube, right? But this fear doesn't stop us from creating our own videos, right?
Right.
It means you don't have to fear that the person you're speaking to is very good at English language, and your English is you've just started and you won't be able to sustain while you're talking to the person. So this should not be the way. You have to have your means where you are strong and where you are weak. So you have to work a lot on your weak part, right? And if you keep thinking, if you keep fearing standing before people and trying to speak before them, I think this fear will keep stopping you. Means this fear haven't stopped us. This fear hasn't stopped us, right? If we were fearing that, there's so many people are already there on this, particular, platform like YouTube, and they're damn good. And how can we start our own channel over here? So it's this is, what you can take into account, that
And then
nothing should, yes,
if any, yes, yes, continue. Sorry,
yes,
continue.
nothing should stop you, no matter, what your level is.
Absolutely.
Just start,
Or if any point these viewers find themselves really struggling or in a state of apprehension, in a more dismal state of mind where they cannot make themselves uh, a movement, then I want them to see both of us, because we are also belonging to the MP board, and how we developed from MP board to CBSE. We
it's
are now
simple,
teaching. I mean,
I
we
would
have taught
say,
ICSE,
we have
CBSE, and
never we
Oxford,
have
everything.
never ever been to English medium schools, right? Really pure Hindi medium student. If we can face, students, if we can talk to people from other countries,
Absolutely.
why can't you people, right? Just you have to have a particular goal, and then you have to put in efforts, and you have to continue, practicing. You have to continue putting in efforts, and you should not be, backward in coming forward when it
Yeah.
comes to learning, right? And if you can do this, you can see yourself fly high in the sky, right? So this is, what you people are supposed to do. And
And
just
grow, and let them know if they have any queries pertaining to communication skills and its development, and to achieve that advanced level, they keep commenting in the channel and can keep asking the questions, and we'll try to respond to all these questions what they have. So they
and
all are free to do these things, but they must be all relevant and consistent with the purpose of the channel that we have already disclosed earlier.
yes. So one more thing, Robin, we would like to inform our audience through this particular video, that if they have any kind of a difficulty while learning English language, we will also be creating videos, so that, we can help them learn, and we will be involving lessons in our videos,
Right,
through which we can, help them learn in our communication, or whatever the, we can start from the tenses, right? And we will be letting them know how you can utilize, how can you use tenses while you're speaking, and what is the best and what is the most practical approach towards learning this particular English language, right? So that they don't have to be very much bothered about English language, because I know in today's era, where English has become, global language, everybody who's working, especially, who's trying to become a part of, multinational companies, who is willing to move to some other countries, they are
right,
having to face this kind of, problem. So
right.
we'll be trying to help these people, so that, they don't have to be worried about this particular thing, and they don't have to spend hell lot of money on
Sure.
on programs which are not producing any results, right? So this is, what we wanted to announce through our video. So whosoever is finding themselves, struggling, especially with English language or communication, skills, they can comment, and they can let us know what they want to learn from us, right? And we'll be taking care of all those things. We'll
Right.
be doing a level best to help people who are
Yeah.
struggling, because we've been through so many struggles, right?
Right.
We want people
Yes.
to be, to be taking the advantage of, the
I'm right.
opportunities that come their way, right? So that they
I
can
think I
live the
think I
best
think
life.
our phases of struggles might be much congruous to the struggling phases of many who come from the middle class, who come from Hindi medium schools or semi English medium schools. So I think they would be very comfortable in grasping things from us. And we also invite people or students from other schools to English medium schools, because I also know the quality of English schools today, even when they are enrolled in some good quality English schools. But this kind of level, this kind of environment is also not there. I think it has
Yes.
already been shifted to something else. So all forms of audience are invited to the channel, and they can also ask things from us.
One more
We'll be
thing,
very grateful.
we want to convey through this particular video, that those who are willing to learn the things in Hindi, we would also be creating some Hindi videos, so that,
Right,
people can make the most of this channel, and they can
right.
learn while they are listening to us, right? So yes, so with this,
And don't forget to tell them the purpose for creating this unedited video is
yes.
just to let people know that yes, because of we are here to give them a clear and pure lesson of English, and therefore there are some silly mistakes probably there, or it might not be there, but it is a part of learning process. It is a part of communication. For that, you should not cease your communicating. You should not cease your learning process, and you should continue with this. So this very idea and this very particular thing you must share with your
So
audience too.
this idea is intentional. We did intentionally don't want to write
Yeah,
edit the videos because this
yeah,
is very natural and people should be given what is natural, right?
right,
So we should not be pretending to be what we are not. So we
absolutely,
simply say that all our videos, no matter what topic we are discussing, all the videos are unedited, and this is just because we want to tell the people that making mistakes is the part of our life, and instead of fearing them, we should be correcting them. And
right.
this is how we learn, because if you don't let people know where you're going wrong, or do you ever go wrong, you will
Hmm.
never come to know what mistakes you are
Right,
making,
right, right,
how you can correct them. So with
right,
this,
right.
now we are going to wrap up this video, and
Sure,
here we've discussed many points, like how a person can develop especially English language, because this video is all about English language.
sure,
So here, we talked about immersive learning. We talked about the creating environment, right? We talked about the technology as you already have, access to, and what kind of approach you should have towards learning and developing English language, right? So if
right,
you put all these suggestions and ideas into practice, you can see change in your spoken English.
right.
And if you still find some problems while learning, you can comment, so that we'll get to know, and then we'll be creating content accordingly, right?
Okay,
Now I'm taking a leave, we both are taking a leave, and
sure,
we will see you in the next video with a new interesting topic. And we would also wait for your comments, right, so
okay,
that we can respond to them with the bestest of our abilities, right?
okay.
Yes, so now I'm taking a leave. I'll see you in the next video.
Right, take care. Good night.
Good night.